SteelSeries Sonar is a free audio program that lets you make real-time adjustments to sound being played or sound being recorded. So if you don't like the way that your headset sounds, then programs like this, SteelSeries Sonar and Equalizer APO, are a good place to start. If you want to boost or cut different frequencies to make your music sound better, just tune it to your liking. Or if you want to make certain sounds stand out, like in FPS games, you want to make footsteps louder, then you're in the right place. Same goes for your microphone. You can drastically change the way that your standalone mic or your headset mic sounds. You can really actually salvage a lot of the headset mics by sending them through programs like SteelSeries Sonar. So to use Sonar, first you need to download it from SteelSeries website. You'll download SteelSeries GG, which is this. I already have it open right now. And then you can download Sonar, and when you finish, then it'll be down here. So Sonar, it's free and you don't have to pay any money, but there are a few catches. First off, you do need to create an account and sign in. Now, I'm not entirely sure how long you can use this program without internet access, but I do know to sign in the first place, you definitely need to be connected to the internet. It would not let me sign in without being connected to the internet. Secondly, the program does collect some data on you. I don't know exactly how much, and if you turn this off, I don't know exactly how much that actually prevents. Most programs are like that these days, but just putting that out there. And the last thing, I'm not sure if this is really a catch, but they promote these SteelSeries products on the homepage. So when you open this up, then yeah, you'll see all this stuff. Anyway, let's get into what this program actually does for your audio. There are 4 tabs at the top: mixer, game, chat, and microphone. So let's go over each one individually. In the mixer tab, you can control the master volume, game, chat, and the microphone volume. Master volume will affect the game and chat together, and it kind of scales, so if they're not at the same level, then this will still move them both. Now, before you can fully utilize the game chat mixer, you're gonna have to set your Sonar devices to the default as Windows settings. I'm not gonna click that right now because I've already used this program several times and I'm recording a video on OBS. I don't really want it conflicting. You can use this seamlessly with OBS, but as I'm gonna be changing a lot of the settings, I don't want it to affect the audio that you actually hear. So I'm not gonna click this right now, but you can just click this and then it'll set the defaults for you by itself. Now, what it's gonna do is make your default audio source as this: SteelSeries Sonar Gaming. All right, so here's how the game chat mixer works. So you would select in the game whichever device you're listening to. So I'm using the HyperX Cloud Alpha and I have it plugged in by a splitter. So this is going to show up as speakers, high definition audio device. And chat's going to be the same thing. Pick the same that you just picked before, speakers, high definition audio device. And then this will light up the chat mix. Now, most of your audio is going to default to going to game, what I demonstrated below, but some communication programs, or really any program, if you just go in the settings, you can change it to play in chat. One example is Discord. That's the most common use that people use for that. So let me go ahead and demonstrate. So in Discord, this is the SteelSeries Sonar microphone, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but specifically the output, what I would hear chat would be SteelSeries Sonar chat. So if someone was talking in Discord, then it will come in the chat instead of the SteelSeries Sonar game. So I'll talk about how that works. Now you can also have different programs and have their audio specifically played in game or chat. So like if a music app or something, or like Firefox, let's say you're playing music in Firefox and you want that to play specifically in chat, the way you would do that, open your settings and then you'd go to sound, and then scroll down, volume mixer, and then you could say, okay, Firefox, I want all that to play, output device default, and then you can make it SteelSeries Sonar Gaming or SteelSeries Sonar Chat. So you can just make different applications, play audio to either game or chat, or you can just do that in Discord or any other program that allows you to do that in the software itself. And I'll show why you might want to do that in a minute. So now in Sonar, you can raise the volume of the game or chat independently, or you can also scale them. So this would make the game or the chat louder and they would scale together. So if you wanted to hear the game louder than like Discord, or if Discord, you know, it was too quiet, the people's mic were too quiet, you can just raise this up so that you're not having one overpower the other, or if you wanted one to overpower the other, then you could do it like this. Now, the reason that you want to use the chat mix specifically instead of just these bars is because it won't change the volume that the sources are going to be recorded in other programs. So for example, OBS, this is just how much you're going to hear in your own headphones. But say you were streaming and you wanted the stream to hear your game way louder than your chat, then you don't have to actually decrease the volume of chat because this will decrease how much you hear of it and also the stream. You could say, okay, let me make chat louder for me, but then the stream would still be hearing it at the same volume. Or you could even lower the chat so that the stream wouldn't hear it as much, but then raise the chat over here in the chat mix so that you're hearing the chat louder, but what you're recording the stream, it's not getting too loud. So there's a lot of flexibility here. So I'll give another example of what this can be really useful for. Let's say you were listening to like copyrighted music on Twitch, you didn't want to get a DMCA, you actually didn't want Twitch to even hear it at all, you can set, like I showed before, Firefox to be your standalone program that is playing back in chat like I showed in the Windows settings. Go over to Firefox, put that as SteelSeries Sonar chat right there, and then you go back to the SteelSeries program. So right now I'm playing some music that is definitely copyrighted in Firefox, and you can see the little bar right here that's going up. But what I could do in OBS, for example, now this is gonna look a little bit weird because I have two instances of OBS up, but what I can do in the desktop audio, click the gear, go to properties, and then select SteelSeries Sonar, and instead of chat, which would be recording the music, only have this on gaming. This way, OBS isn't going to actually record or send through to Twitch anything coming from chat, which is going to be that copyrighted music, but you'd still hear the game, and then this would be my mic, you'd still hear my voice. So this is incredibly useful. And then this last tab over here is microphone. This is pretty obvious. It's just going to change the volume of how loud your mic is. Right now I have this selected as Shure MV7. You know, it's not active or anything. I'm not using it in another program, but I will talk about that in a little bit. Now, one caveat that I do want to add here is this game chat mix slider. I demonstrated this with the SteelSeries Arctis Nova Pro, but you can physically move this, which is a little bit inconvenient with most headsets, just like any headset that you're using. But with SteelSeries devices specifically, they connect to Sonar in a little bit different way. So you actually can move the dial itself to change it. But the con there is that you won't be able to actually slide this with your mouse. So the SteelSeries Arctis 9 is able to utilize this, the Arctis Nova Pro, a lot of SteelSeries devices, and I've talked about several on my channel and on my website. Now let's go over to the game tab. This is where you're going to be altering the sound of the primary audio source that is coming through your headphones or whatever speaker you have. So there is a parametric EQ at the top here. Then you have this spatial audio with different sliders that you can use. Then there's this gain, which will just be like an preamp really. Sometimes I'm listening to like movies like on my monitor because like I can't have headphones on for whatever reason, like if I'm doing my dreads or something like that. And my monitor is not actually very loud, but what I can do is I can use this gain to boost the volume even greater than I normally could, even if it was maxed. The smart volume is supposed to be like a compressor. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but that's what that does. Now, what most people are probably downloading this thing for is the equalizer. Now you get one for your voice chat and your microphone too, which is amazing, but we're gonna focus on this one first. Now I've set everything to default. Now this is a parametric equalizer. Instead of straight bars that you're gonna get with equalizer APO, let me go ahead and open that up so you can see. This right here is equalizer APO. You have straight bars that you can move up and down, and it looks a lot more like these bars that you have the 10-band EQ over there, but this one is a parametric EQ. So to start, you get 5 different points right here that you can adjust. You can move up and down. You can do more things. I'll talk about that, but you can also add more points. You can add up to 5 more points so that you can make this a 10-band EQ. And then you can move all of these individually. Going up will make that frequency louder, and going down will make it quieter. And the user interface is very intuitive. They have it labeled sub bass all the way through the highs. These are going to be these low rumbles down here, and these are going to be like more piercing sounds and like glass shattering, things like that. Mid-range is more of like voice and vocals. In fact, down here, if you really don't know what all these numbers are and stuff, you can just be like, okay, I just want bass. I know I want more bass. And then it'll just kind of move that up there and it's like, oh, okay, that's where the bass frequencies are. Or voice, most vocals more prominent around here. Even, you know, a little bit lower sometimes, but this will make those stand out a little bit more, make them airier. And then treble, this is the high end and it will boost that for you. Just like a kind of a basic slider for if you don't know what you're doing at all, but you kind of know, I like bass, I like treble, I want my voices to stand out. That's how you can do that. Now, in addition to just raising or lowering these, you can change their Q value, which is just going to be how much it adjusts for the neighboring frequencies as well. So if you want a really precise frequency, like, you know, there's a very precise sound like a beep or something like that that you specifically want to get out, and you happen to know the exact frequency, or you trial and error were able to figure it out, then you can make it alter that and not much else. Or like for me, for example, if I wanted like bass to be stronger, I wouldn't just want like a tiny bit like right here, just like one specific frequency. I'd want it kind of like just evening out, so it's not like kind of really random weird spikes. I'd have it something more like that. So let me reset everything and I'll show a couple examples of how I actually use this parametric EQ. Let me go ahead and start with this. This is the SteelSeries Arctis 5. And let's say I wanted to EQ this thing for music. Now, as I've said in my previous videos, I really like a lot of bass, specifically sub bass. I like that really deep vibration in music genres like EDM, funk, rap. And most gaming headsets, SteelSeries ones specifically, are really treble heavy out the box. They're kind of shrill and the bass like takes a really far backseat. So I would make something like this. In the configuration tab at the top, you can select a bunch of different presets. I'll talk about a couple of these, but this is an example one that made EQ1 SteelSeries. So for the Arctis 5, I like to add some sub bass down here. If you get really too deep, most headsets, you don't even really hear anything. Even a lot of songs, they don't even really have audio really all the way down to the 20 hertz range. But around here, which is like 43, and then this will kind of scoop all the way, you know, down to up to like maybe like 120. It'll have that really nice kind of clean scoop. I had this as a pretty wide Q value just so that it's encompassing quite a bit. And it really adds a decent amount of vibration to this headset that it just doesn't really have out the box. I think the clarity in the mid-range is pretty good. Didn't really have any issues there. And then I did dip the highs quite a bit, like about the 10 kilohertz range. And this is just the default Q value, honestly. You can make it a little bit thinner if you want, or a little bit more. It's really up to you. But I kind of scooped that a little bit just because I think it's really shrill for certain sounds. And I think that this really like evens this out for my taste for music. Now, I don't really listen to the Arctis 5 or any SteelSeries device for music that much. But if you were to say, hey, you got to use a SteelSeries device and you got to EQ it for music, then I'd probably listen to something like this. But this is all personal preference and it's going to depend on the genre that you want. And that's why it's so cool that there's so many different presets here to just give you an idea. This is their deep bass, what they put in here, and they actually have a little bit of a boost in the highs as well so that you can get some of that. Then there's like punchy, clear vocals, immersion. There's a lot of different presets that they have. I don't really like presets. I like doing things on my own. And this is just something that I have. It's really basic. I don't even have all the bands set. It's just something that I was testing. But let me show something with a little bit more utility, what I think that most people are really going to be using this thing for. All right, right now, this is the Drop Plus EPOS PC38X, and I've reviewed this headset. It's my favorite sounding headset just out the box, but this is EQ4 for Warzone. I find that because it doesn't really have that shrill upper mids and highs, and because the bass is so good and so powerful, that it makes it so that certain frequencies for competitive play, I'd like to alter. So let me go ahead and describe what I did here. This is actually quite basic. I actually put all the different bands just so that I can control if I needed them. I lowered some of the sub bass and the bass a little bit so that explosions and rumbles aren't going to get like way too loud and they're not going to like overpower things. Footsteps, from what I've heard and tested, it's really closer to around the 200 hertz range. But the thing is, footsteps, and I'm going to talk about this in a different video if I ever get around to making it. Footsteps are more of a percussive sound, so they don't have like one set frequency. It like resonates all the way up through here. You'll hear it at its like fundamental frequency down here, but percussive sounds kind of just go all the way up through the spectrum. That's why sometimes when people say, oh, you need to use boost high in Warzone or boost low, they're both right. Honestly, if you boost low, then you'll hear footsteps louder. If you boost high, you won't hear it as much louder, but it's resonating all the way throughout here. Now here's the catch: if you were to boost the bass, or if you were to just leave it at its default where it is just right here. So there are a lot of other sounds like rumbles and explosions, grenades going off, cluster strikes and things like that you'll hear in addition to footsteps if you have a very strong sub bass and bass frequency as far as the volume, if you were to like kick that up. So yes, the footsteps will get louder, but so will a lot of explosions to kind of crowd it out anyway. What I did was around the 4 kilohertz range is really what I always talk about, that range. It's not super precise, but it's something that helped me a lot. I have it right here at 3.8. And this is a sound where if you boost this, the explosions, they really don't get quite up to here. And this is a good area for like, this will make some of the frequencies higher, like some of the gunshots when you like unzip for like your armor, like this, that little thing, it'll make that louder. And the reason this is still useful for footsteps, even though they're more prominent down here in the lower mids and the bass, is because you haven't really affected the explosions nearly as much because they don't resonate as much once we get up to the upper mids and the highs. So now you have footsteps that are still louder, not as prominent up here as they were down here, but they're still louder without affecting the explosions, but they'll really stand out more from explosions and other rumbles. So let me go ahead and actually show an example. All right, this is a bit of an older clip. It was hard to find an exact example of what I was looking for, but the main things to listen to here are the precision airstrike and the footsteps. So let's go ahead and turn the equalizer off first, and let's just play it by itself. All right, let's go back. Turn the equalizer on. Same clip again. Precision airstrike, footsteps. All right. Now, in order to really hear that, you're definitely going to have headphones on, and it is still a pretty subtle effect. As you can just see how little I'm really changing, just minus 4.5 dB right there, and then plus 5 dB up in the upper mids. But what you should hear is less fullness in that precision airstrike and more of like a high heel clacking for the footsteps. Just for me, it really helps get that separation of those footsteps from some of the other ambient sounds that are in the game, because that high heel clacking is really going to stand out. Now, compared to the Drop Plus EPOS PC38X, a lot of headsets by default really have a sound that does have more of like weaker bass and stronger upper mids, so that you kind of get that default out the box. And even though I don't really like that for movies or music or anything else, for FPS games, it is pretty beneficial, at least for me. So that's why with this headset, I do like to alter the settings like that. Now, the coolest thing is if you have a different headset that's tuned completely differently than this, like again, the Alpha is tuned totally differently, the Arctis 5 totally different. You can change the different presets. And if you don't agree with me on any of the changes that I've made, or even what like the specific frequencies that you want for your game, then you can say, okay, there's other people like the CSGO preset, which has all these like really unique different peaks that he has and different alterations. So whatever game you're playing or whatever preference you have, whatever sound you want to make stand out, what I would do is just record a clip, play it back, and then just tweak these as you want. You can also use this test sound. The problem with this is it's not like game specific for what game you're playing, but you have a ton of flexibility. Like if you're going in just a 5-band EQ, you're not going to get anything that looks like quite as precise as this. And you might be wondering what this thing is down here. I actually was at first as well. This is a high pass filter, and you can access it by clicking here. If you click on any of these, that's when you can actually drag them. But if you click this, what it is, low pass, high pass, and then shelving, this basically will make it so that certain frequencies that are below this, you can't hear them at all. So certain rumbles, this guy just doesn't want to hear any of it. That's great. You just don't hear any of it. Certain peaks, not sure, because I don't play CSGO, if this is footsteps or gunshots or any audio, I have no idea because I don't play that game, but they want this to be boosted. Awesome. Now next we have spatial audio. Now, like every other surround sound gimmick, yeah, I'm going to call it that, they don't tell you exactly what it does. You know, they claim that it's ideal for competitive FPS games, and you mouse over it and it just some makes it more competitive or immersive. You can change it from speaker mode to headphone mode. If they just flat out told you, yeah, we're changing the EQ a little bit and we're adding some reverb, then it would kind of ruin the enigma of surround sound. So if they don't just flat out do that, no company really does. But I do think that for immersive or just single player games, this is pretty fun. Like specifically the distance slider, it can make a lot of the sound like really close to you, as far as like it's almost like you're getting closer to the action. It's a very interesting effect. I'm not even sure how exactly they did it, but it's really cool. Obviously it's going to have problems because when you're playing games, you're going to think that like enemies are like right next to you when they're like across the hall, but you can alter this. I don't really play with this on. It's just fun to mess around and use. Immersion performance, I've still haven't dabbled around enough with this to really get a detailed explanation that I can give you on exactly what it is. I've had some people like speculate in the comments, and some of that stuff sounds pretty legit, but I just don't really know personally myself. But hey, if you like special audio, if you like surround sound stuff, then by all means. Personally, just not really for me. If you want to perform your best in FPS games or competitive games in general, this is definitely something you want to keep off. Adding in reverb and stuff, it's not really the way to go. Now, smart volume, I think that this is supposed to be a compressor as far as making quieter sounds louder and louder sounds like not going over a certain volume. You can configure the level, but I don't know, in my experience, it will make quieter sounds a little bit louder. Like if footsteps are like more in the distance, it'll kind of make those a little bit louder, but like the gunshots, those are still like at the peak. So it's not like it's compressing it that hard. Maybe I just haven't messed around with it enough. Anyway, this equalizer gets a 10 out of 10 for me compared to all the other ones that I've used. Now let's switch over to the microphone tab. I'm going to skip chat for a second and you'll see why. But I'll switch over to the microphone tab. There's more of a traditional 10 band EQ, so nothing super major. Hopefully this isn't actually affecting my mic. It shouldn't be right now. Then you have multiple different types of noise reduction filters. So there's these three down here. There's noise reduction, noise gate, and smart voice. Now this is going to be for background noises specifically, like for like a PC fan. This is for impact. This is for like keyboard typing. And then this is smart voice, which is the same thing as that compressor before. The noise gate is so that it's going to, if you don't have volume over a certain level, then you're not going to hear anything. And once it gets over that level, so like if there's just this, like if you're silent, if you're being quiet, then nobody's going to hear like fans or cars in the background or anything until you start talking. Now what the Clearcast AI noise cancellation does is it kind of combines all of these automatically together, and then you could do a slider right here for that. So personally, I found the Clearcast AI noise cancellation to be the best. So let me see if I can go ahead and demonstrate that. Just test this equalizer real quick. So this should be a little bit of a bass increase. Personally, like I said, I'm a big fan of bass, but I'm not hearing this back in real time, so I'm not sure exactly what it sounds like. What you can do is you can record a mic test and play it back. That's going to be a little bit awkward on video, so I'm not going to do that right now. And let's drop a little bit of the sibilance so that you can just hear a little bit of the difference. And then let me go back, and this is what it's like regularly without any changes to it. All right, so in addition to the EQ, let's go ahead and test this Clearcast AI noise cancellation. So you probably can hear my PC fan and maybe some rumble from outside because the TV's on. So let me be quiet. And I see the level's pretty high. So let me go ahead and turn this on, the Clearcast noise cancellation. And we can slide this up a little bit as well. Now, when you slide it up, it is going to alter the like how your voice sounds as it's trying to get rid of like other background noises. So sliding this up is going to have more like alterations and distortions, and sliding it down is going to have less. I find this to be better than these down here. So I'm not even going to really demonstrate this just because this is so much better now. And so let's go ahead. So I'm talking right now with this on, and then let me go ahead and turn the equalizer on as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them off. So boom, boom. And now this is what it sounds like without that noise cancellation on and without the equalizer. Now let's go ahead and do some keyboard typing. All right, so this is some keyboard typing without the noise cancellation on, how loud it's gonna be. And now let me go ahead and turn this noise cancellation on so that you can hear, you know, my voice versus the typing. It's going to try to eliminate the typing more. And let's drag it up a little bit and see how much we can get. All right, so we dragged it all the way up. Well, not all the way up, but you know, and see how much of the keyboard typing can really eliminate. I'll go ahead and listen to this back. All right, so I got a bit crazy with it, dragged it all the way up to 80, and let's go ahead and do some typing here. And this is just as loud as before. This is a really loud keyboard, and it's right next to my microphone. This is a dynamic mic, but still, the keyboard is just like, it's angled in a way that's just gonna be super loud. And let's drag this all the way to the maximum and see what we can get here. And how much it's gonna alter my voice, that's what I'm really interested to hear. And all right. So as you could hear there or not hear, it did a ridiculously good job of getting rid of those keyboard types. Like you couldn't even really hear that at all. And it's not really impacting my voice too much, dropping this back down. And this is back to, it's about like 30, 25, actually 23 right there. And I'll turn this off. And yeah, it did a really good job. Honestly, it just was like a little bit of, you know, impromptu testing. But so far, it's like on par with like Crisp and RTX voice, and maybe even better than those in some cases. This is amazing. Now, what's even more amazing, or just as amazing, I don't know which one you want to say, but you can use the same thing. Let me go ahead and put this on actually. You can use this for chat, and this is going to be the same thing. It's so you can EQ your music differently than you're going to EQ like your game. But what most people are probably going to be using this for is you can actually EQ somebody else's mic. So if you have them on Discord and you don't like the way their mic sounds, maybe there's a lot of background noise, you can throw this Clearcast AI noise cancellation on their mic. They're not even going to hear anything. They're not even going to know. It's just going to be what you hear on your end. You can change their EQ if they have a really thin, tinny mic, like for example, the Arctis 5. It's actually a pretty clear mic, but the highs are like crazy. So you can like dip those down if somebody has like a headset like that, and then boost the bass a little bit. Or if you don't like really bassy sounds and you don't like the breathy kind of sound, then you can like dip that down. It's really, you know, it's all your choice. You have all of this control. Same thing if they're getting like really peaking loud, and when they speak quietly, like you don't like that difference in the volume. If you have to crank the volume all the way up to hear them when they're really quiet, you can turn this smart voice on. Again, this compressor for me, it's a little bit iffy, but the control that you get for your own microphone and for the chat volume, just absolutely amazing with the software. So overall, this software is super densely packed with really good features. Like as you heard, I think it made my microphone sound better just with the EQ, but then also the noise cancellation. It was able to get rid of a lot of the keyboard clicking. The game, you have just such an amazing control that you can get with all these different presets, or you can just make your own like I said. So overall, SteelSeries GG and Sonar is a really good program for audio. A lot of bugs and confusing elements have been fixed or altered from the early access version, so I'm sure they're going to continue to keep improving this. So I recommend this software as long as you're okay with the semi-intrusive app that requires you to sign up and have an internet connection to sign into it. So I do completely understand that, and if you're okay with that, then I do recommend this software.